Welcome back to the Smartbuild implementation series. This is part 10, covering Windows and window hardware in this series. So in front of us here we have some black windows with grids, and these are pretty popular in Smartbuild. A lot of people are doing bids with black windows. Maybe you're just going to set up your database with white, but we're going to talk about that all in this video and go through how do you get windows to look like this if you don't have any, or how do you get your windows in here that you need. So back to the setup wizard. When you first log on, you go to your settings, setup wizard, and go to the Windows tab here. And if you're inheriting our generic database here, the windows that you see may look something like this list here. And again, as we talked about in the overhead doors and walk doors, if you've already watched those videos, very similar, where you have these windows, and it is much easier to find one similar to what you need. Maybe you only need 5 or 6 of these windows, but you find one that's very similar to the size and style that you have, and rename it and add your part number, and you may be done at that point. So, and again, the reason that you want to do that is because when we go look at the 3D catalog that we have that matches these windows, the 3D catalog we have set up beforehand, any one of these windows have a 3D model assigned to them already. So it saves you a lot of work of having to know how to use that functionality in the software and actually set up a 3D model and set the scaling right, because there's a lot involved to set up the scaling for a window like this. So again, you're welcome to edit this database that's here, delete out the sizes or styles you don't want, and then if you are changing a window, you can just double click on it here, and it takes you into the SKU and the description that you can change. You can even change the size, adjust that a bit, the style. And these styles, you may put them in a little bit different class than what we have. Currently, you cannot add any new classes, so you have to just work with the ones we have here. But this seems to work for most companies. And if you notice, we also have things like vents and other, and that's kind of we'll talk about that in the end of this section here. But you can have other items other than just windows in here if it's something that attaches to a wall and is framed kind of like a window. But yeah, that's kind of getting off track there. But the windows themselves, if you want to add a new window, simply enter your SKU, the description, the width or the height, pick a style. And then I want to talk about this supplier ID for a bit. It does relate to Windows a little bit more maybe than some other categories, where if you have 2 or 3 different brands of Windows or suppliers that you get Windows from, you could set this up to where maybe the supplier ID, maybe we have an ABC supply, and we just create a supplier ID like this. And now this window, every time that we're in a job, and maybe there's several windows, and some of them have this ABC supply ID on them, we could create a custom output in the settings here that would have that supplier ID on it. So it is something to think about, and we're not going to cover setting up the outputs at this point, but just so you know, as you're setting up Windows, if you want to have a custom report just for pulling a window list from a job and maybe from different suppliers, you could go ahead and put a supplier ID in here. And maybe your supplier ID is just something as simple as window, and then that would just extract a window list from the job. So that is there to use if you do want to use that supplier ID for Windows. So again, that kind of really quickly covers how to add new windows. The same functionality works to upload. So if you want to see how you can upload windows, if you want to start fresh and upload your own, you could download this list here, and you see all the columns that we require in a window upload file. So you can see the columns. You could adjust maybe what you see there and re-upload what we have. So here are all the generic windows that we have. You can see the classes, the selling units, and all that. So you could create your own file. You just have to make sure that this heading is the same. So if I would want, I could delete all these windows here and start creating my own based off of these fields. So that is optional too. And then you can work in Excel, and when you're done, you can simply upload your file, choose the file, and save that. So it's really easy to work in Excel also. So for the next part of this video, I want to talk about Windows and how they get framed. So this is something we haven't really covered in none of the other door setups is, the framing side of it. And we are going to have a full review of setting up framing rules, but this may help just understand a little bit about the whole window process and how a window gets quoted in Smartbuild. So when you choose your window, and to add a window to a job, we have it in openings. You click your window, and then you have your classes here that show up. So again, those classes that we were talking about, setting up your windows at, putting in classes, that is the visual that you're getting here. So when I pick a window and choose one from my catalog and I add it to the wall, it may or may not frame like you're seeing here. And that's what I want to talk about here is if you go into the door and windows section of a job, and this may be later on when you get your windows all set up and you want to test out your framing and trim. I just want to walk through this a little bit. So on the window, if you're using a post frame style building, we have several settings here of window post framing. So the jam type, that just means that it's a jam. It's not a post going all the way in the ground. It's just a jam. So you could set this to jam and post or just post. And again, this style here is what you call just jam. I'm just using a 2x6. And again, these jams would be what you see going on the upright. So you may not even need a material in there if you don't need to box yours out. That could be set to none. But the material going around the edge here is we call the girt blocking. So that's going in between the girts here, just something to nail your trim to. And then the girt blocking, it may act differently based off of, what's top, where your boundaries are. So this jam top is saying header top, and that's just saying it's going up to the top of here. And the header is basically this member going across here. So when we look at this header style, I'm using a girt. So a girt style header is applied in line with our wall girts. So if I would move this to be a commercial style girt or something else, this probably wouldn't be the header style I want to use. So a girt style is always outside the post in line with the girts. And then the seal style, jumping down here, it's also girt style. So it's outside the post and it goes from main column to main column. If you don't want to do that, and maybe these uprights go from girt to girt, and then these here don't need to go all the way to the next column. So this group of settings here, by changing them around, we could build that type of framing also. So there's a lot of settings here, and the best thing that I can recommend is after you get your windows and your framing parts all set up, you're trying to set up your windows, just walk through these settings here and adjust them till you get what you want. And you can also go into the drawings view and go to that window. So I went to drawings and I went to this window, this wall with the window in it, and I can rotate this around, I can zoom in, and I can see my parts. So what is what? So this is what we're calling backing. So when I adjust something here, refresh it and watch what happens. Or when I change this setting, just watch what happens. And you can see it here, and then it helps teach you, what is what in these settings. So going back out to this model here, and talking about, again, you can do black windows, you can do white windows. The same case applies. You do have to have a individual SKU and part number for each color. So if you offer one window in 5 colors, that means you have to put the window in 5 times in the setup wizard, one for each color. And then on the setup side back here, we have to have a model for each color. So it is a little bit more work if you're adding a lot of colors. So we've covered the framing, kind of a quick preview of setting up window framing. This is just a preview of what you would get into if you want to set up your own windows and start fresh. But you do have this catalog all set up if you can edit one of these windows and make them your own. There's really not much to cover on hardware. We could go into that, but the window hardware is normally things like tape, window tape, maybe items that you just want to, instead of putting them into the main hardware category, we would just put them into here, just so you can find them easily. But it doesn't really matter if they are in hardware or here. So just think about maybe there are some items you want to add to hardware, but if there are, it's the same process. It's just clicking, adding the SKU in the description, and you can also download the file and look at the headings. So if you need to see what columns you need to upload, and some people, you see we have an example here of shutters, and this would be something that you could put shutters in here. It would be a good place to keep them and organize them. Well, I think that wraps up our Windows video, and I hope that helps everyone, and we'll see you next time.